It's 13 minutes past 8 o'clock, and a leading bank has warned that inflation could reach its highest rate in nearly 50 years. Citigroup have said that the rising cost of living could surpass 18% in the first quarter of next year. That's fuelled by soaring energy prices.
That could see the average annual household energy bill reach more than £5,800 by April. And it's also having a real impact on businesses. Trade organisations in Northern Ireland have today published an action plan that they say would give businesses the relief they need in order to survive the winter.
They're asking for a business rates holiday until April next year, a reduction in the tourism VAT rate and the removal of VAT from energy bills. Anna Doherty is with us, interim CEO of Londonderry Chamber, and Dr Katrina Collins, who's president of Lisburn Chamber and co-founder of the Daily Apron Cafe and Bakery in Lisburn. Both of them part of putting together this action plan. Thanks so much for being on the programme. Katrina, what's it like out there, and why have you decided you need to make this intervention now?
Thank you. It's very difficult, and I think the title of the action plan, The Perfect Storm, is unfortunately the perfect description. I think when we think of storms and, you're trying to make sure nothing gets broken, you're trying to tie things down, you're hoping that everything sort of remains as stable as possible. At the moment, that's just not the case. The action plan details quite clearly those actions that are needed. For us, as a chamber in Lisburn, sitting with other chambers, we completely support the action plan as the points put forward. And then as a small business, we see that day to day, what that feels like. I was just remembering back to the days, which isn't that long ago, where you might have got a letter or a notification from a supplier to say there's going to be an increase in, and they would name a product. That's gone now, because really the increases across all products, for example, it just happens constantly. So yes, it's very real.
We talked to you about that in a bit more detail, your own particular expenditure as well with the bakery and everything. But Anna, just in terms of the action points, what is the key one among them, and why have you decided on the ones that you've had? Just talk us through what you'd like to see.
Well, thank you. Yes, well, the key ones I think you've mentioned there, actually, we're looking at asking for a decrease in the VAT rate to 17%, which is going to immediately put money in people's pockets. And that's what we need. We need to see a bit more confidence there, consumer confidence.
But that would be a government's, Westminster government decision, would it not, as opposed to an executive decision, even though we don't have a functioning executive at the moment? So
so we have actually the plan divides the action points into those directed at the UK government and those directed at the NI executive as well. So yeah, I mean,
I don't want to pour cold water on it. I know that you're trying to help the businesses that you represent, but one of the things about cutting VAT is that quite a few economists believe that stimulus is actually not the answer to rising inflation. It's kind of like the equivalent of sending a cheque to people in terms of how much they spend, because it's not just about energy prices, it's about the cost of everyday food. It's also about the labour market. So there are a lot of challenges, and people are concerned that actually if you cut VAT, you just stimulate inflation more.
You're absolutely right. And what we're looking at is trying to offer a range of opportunities for government to look at and pick up on, and anything they can do, businesses will be grateful for. So, as you say, the rising costs are impacting on absolutely everybody. And households are seeing their disposable income squeezed by rising energy and food bills. And that knock-on effect is really seriously causing problems for our businesses, the smaller independent traders that make up a lot of our membership here in Derry.
When you look beyond the organisations involved in this, though, it comes down to the fact, Katrina, that it's also about real businesses that are behind each of these organisations that are dealing with real bills. Can you just take us through, from your bakery's point of view, just the kind of changes we're seeing in bills?
Yeah, absolutely. And, when you bring it down to numbers and facts, I think it does make it very real. So, for example, one of the products we use the most, as you might expect in a bakery and in the cafe, is butter. So we've seen a 91% increase just one this year from last year to this.
Can you put that into actual figures?
Yeah, so for example, this time last year, 20 pounds of butter would have been £47, and this year it's 90.
How much do you spend on butter a month?
It's huge. So, on an approximate month, and that's not out, maybe we have markets, but outside of that, we're looking at 15 boxes. That's £300 of butter. If you do the maths on that and that increase, obviously, we have things like chicken that has gone up 63%. So, when we refer back to that perfect storm, it's that sense of wherever you turn. So if you turn to the costs of the raw products, for example, then you go back to the energy costs, it's everything.
Well, let's talk about that as well. I mean, in terms of electricity, in terms of heating, what are the figures like for you? How have they changed over the last year?
Yeah, and of course we are here in summertime.
Yeah.
And again, looking at that comparison of bills, we would have seen in our cafe, the bill last year would have been £750, £700, and we've just got a bill in at £1,500. So that's summer. We're in an older building that doesn't have centralised heating. So if we think about, if you look at those proportion increases, what's that going to look like? In fact, we can predict what that's going to look like now in December.
Can I ask then, what are you going to do about this? Because the practical thing is, if you are seeing those kind of increases that you're talking about there, you have to pass that on to customers, don't you? But realistically, idea of passing on 91% cost to a customer, that feels like potentially putting customers off. How are you balancing this and trying to keep customer base while at the same time making sure your business remains profitable?
Yeah, that's the big question, and it's an everyday what we're doing every day to explore that. You're right. It's the balance between how much do we pass on without the customer saying, well, if I have a small amount of disposable income that I want to treat myself with, do I go to somebody that is charging more than we've ever paid for it, or do I support someone that I've always supported? So it worries us as well in terms of that consumer confidence and consumer choices. So we look across the board at absolutely everything, and that is done on a day-to-day basis.
Just finally, Anna, I just wanted to get you to say really what you would say to our executive today.
Well, what we would say is that we really need immediate interventions here to reverse the trends that are going on. But it's vital that the Assembly returns without delay. And we've been calling for that since the beginning of May. It's just never a good time to be without a functioning government. But it's really inexcusable that householders have been abandoned in the current climate.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the finance minister would say, wouldn't he, that at the end of 2021, they secured this agreement to the package of measures that have helped to reduce the financial pressures on businesses this year. 50 million rates holiday, the extension of small business rate relief scheme for another year, directly benefiting 29,000 small businesses, etc., freezing the regional rate for business ratepayers for the second year in a row.
And we need to continue with that.
OK, simple as that. Thank you very much indeed, both of you. It's really good to have you on the programme with us. That's Dr Katrina Collins in the studio with us, who's president of Lisburn Chamber, and Anna Doherty, interim CEO of London Dairy Chamber.
Just before you go, Katrina, I was just going to ask you, just on that point, how worried are you for your business this winter? Are you concerned that potentially, just when you talk about that idea of the rising costs, are you concerned that you will be able to survive this storm?
Absolutely. I would be lying and probably naive to say that I wasn't concerned, because it's coming at you from all quarters. So maybe in the past where you'd think, OK, well, we've got rising costs over here, we're doing all right over here. Like just an example, at the weekend, we had 3 things break down, which that's something that, yes, you might have contingency. Actually, you probably don't have a lot of it, but that was something unexpected. A fridge broke down, a bathroom broke down, and there was an extraction issue. So in one weekend, the costs attached to that. So absolutely, it's a worry day to day. What we don't want to do, I will say this, is that we don't want to pass that worry and concern onto our staff and onto our customers, because what we're trying to do is to keep a certain level of confidence and that they will return to us.
Katrina, thanks very much, and thanks very much for coming in as well. That's Katrina Collins, who is the president of Lisburn Chamber and also the co-founder of the Daily Apron Cafe and Bakery in Lisburn.